So, hello and welcome to the 12th episode of season 2 of the Surrogate podcast. I'm really, really excited about this episode because I get to sit in the studio with two incredible women who I have really close relationships with and also really, really admire. I'm joined today by Sophie and by Georgia, and we're going to be discussing life beyond surrogacy. Not that I think for a second that either of them have life beyond surrogacy yet, but let's delve right in. Let me start with you, Sophie. Could you give a bit more of an introduction to you and what your relationship with surrogacy is?
Hi, everyone. I am Sophie Smith. I live in Hertfordshire with my 2 babies and my husband. My eldest son is 5.5, and he was born via surrogacy. And my best friend was our surrogate for him. And he was born a week after the first COVID lockdown. So that was also a little bit more drama in there.
And some of our regular listeners will be linking back now and going, hang on, I know who that surrogate was because we've had Emily on the show. So
Yeah, so Em is a partner of my surrogacy journey. She runs the Mindful Birth group. So yeah, we've been best friends since I was 13, 14 years old. So yeah, I was very, very lucky that someone offered to be our surrogate. So.
And you work in surrogacy because you work with Jay. So tell us a bit about that.
So I am Senior Member Experience Manager here at my surrogacy journey. So I was very lucky to be given the opportunity, having gone through a surrogacy journey myself, to come and, help other people going through their journeys. And it's a real passion of mine to help those going through this pathway because I know what a difficult one it can be. And I really enjoy supporting them through it, basically.
So genuinely the question of life beyond surrogacy doesn't really apply to you because there's no life beyond it. But beyond your own journeys, we'll come to you. Georgia, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you? Welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thanks, Kay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Georgia, and we most recently had our little boy, Sonny, who was born through surrogacy in Mexico. We have been supported by MSJ for quite a few years now, having embarked on a UK journey with your good self.
Yeah, I was your surrogate for the first journey.
Indeed were. And then we chose to sort of go down the Mexican path, which was successful. And we spent the best part of this year in Mexico, bringing up our little boy.
Who is almost as long earthside as he was in utero now.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's always a bit of a juncture. It's we are life beyond surrogacy.
Exactly. Yeah, different life.
And I obviously, I've sort of had life beyond surrogacy in the sense that there was a kind of natural end to mine and George's journey together. But I am yet to experience life beyond surrogacy as a surrogate. So we'll watch that space on that one. But both of you, you've got really different aged children. And what I do observe as a surrogate and working in surrogacy is that it kind of becomes really all-consuming when you're in it. It's a very, very different focus to a non-assisted reproductive journey because sometimes you don't find out about those until a little way into it. It's hyper-focused, right? And I know both of you have had long fertility journeys as well before that. Talk to us a little bit about how life now, once you have your babies, how do you transition into life beyond surrogacy?
For us, that was in Mexico. So we were not only, the time difference is big. We can't deny that. There's a big time difference there. And we were, we had no sort of other support network apart from MSJ and our friends and family from afar. So it was literally the 3 of us in this little bubble. And it's often, isn't it, when you're in a situation, you sort of want to get out of it. But when you're out of the situation, I can look back and go, actually, that was quite good. So, it was hard. It was challenging being so far from people. Yeah. And we got by, the 3 of us became this little strong unit. And I truly believe now that's allowed Sonny to be quite sort of grounded.
Quite amazing. Sonny is I'd never, as a doula, I'd never say a good baby, but if I did, he'd get the award,
Yeah. So I think the calmness of just having maybe just the three of us together for, the 5 months of his life, I think that's sort of helped in our transition back to the UK. So not only, I guess, have we transitioned from life beyond surrogacy, but for people who do go down the Mexican path, they then transition from life in Mexico back to the UK.
Yeah.
I think that's important to note.
Roll it back to like the week after Sonny was born. What's the transition there? Because for a person who's carried a baby through non-assisted reproduction, obviously they're in a lot of postnatal recovery. They might be lactating. They might. What does it feel like as mum to suddenly go, here he is? Yeah, talk about that a little
It's
bit.
surreal. It's surreal. And for us, Sonny was so eager to enter the world. He arrived 6 weeks early. So not only did we have to just jump on a plane the day before we were told, we had all that sort of stress and anxiety. He was actually born whilst we were on the plane. So not only did
Everybody's heart rates were going.
I mean, it was the most stressful journey of our entire lives. Fortunately, we had Wi-Fi, even though it wasn't as sharp as it normally is. So we were having pictures of Sonny gone through pixelated, and we were shaking the phone and all those stupid things that you do. So we were in a bit of a state of shock. If I'm completely honest with you, we arrived and we couldn't see Sonny straight away because he was in NICU, just to give him a little support for the first few days of his life earthside. And the first moment I saw Sonny, he was in his little incubator, and it was just this moment that you dreamt about, makes me feel very emotional now. It's just flooded by,
Like, you're going to start me off. Emotions, right? We've not had twos yet on this season, so get them out. Let's go.
It's just, and like Sophie and I, it's taken years for us to get to that point. I don't think unless you experience that from the heart, it's really difficult to just express how that truly feels. But we will try our best. And so that moment felt very surreal. Actually, holding Sonny, in my arms was just the best feeling ever. And as you know, Kay, I was at the time navigating so much loss in my life, having to manage both this immense joy and celebration with this immense sadness and loss was, not easy.
Not easy, and yet held with an enormous amount of grace, and have a huge awe for you for that time. Yeah, it was certainly a roller coaster of joy and sorrow, and continues, I'm sure. Sophie, you're a few years post, and also I've just had privy to your extraordinary journey with your second child, which I didn't know at all before this podcast. So tell us a little bit about your transition to where life is now.
So we are obviously 5.5 years on from surrogacy. So like I said earlier, Leo was born a week after the first national COVID lockdown. So we had to navigate all of that, as well as having a newborn baby. So even, the week before the birth, we didn't know if we'd be allowed in the room. Em was having an elective C-section. So we had a little bit of drama just before he was born. And then, once he was born, we actually had, similar to Georgia and Duncan, we had time, just the three of us, because no one, those were the times where we were in lockdown. And looking back at it, actually, I'm really grateful that we did have that. And it felt like we were handed this baby we'd been, longing for so long. And then it was just us three at home. And I don't know if anyone remembers, but it was such lovely weather as well. So, we were just in this little bubble. And I think that, it was really good for us. Not so good for all the family members that had been hanging through, were desperate to meet, especially my mum, who had been waiting such a long time to meet her grandchild, and then couldn't, through the car window. I think most family and friends met him initially. So those early days were actually really lovely. And then, of course, as the COVID bit prolonged, people did want to meet him, and I wanted other people to sort of, enjoy him as well. So that did eventually happen.
Yeah.
And then, yes, like you said, Kay, we went on within 2 years to experience something I never thought I would ever experience. Went through another round of IVF, and there was one embryo that was, not going to be tested. And we made a very, very, very last minute decision that I would transfer the embryo, having not been able to carry for 8 years. And our daughter was born, 9 months later. So we had 2 children under 2. Which, never ever thought we'd have one child. So it all changed really quickly for us. And I would always say, and this does upset me because, people would say to me, well, how are you going to tell Leo that you didn't carry him, and you managed to carry Grace? But I wouldn't have carried Grace if Leo hadn't been in the world. I just know I wouldn't have, him being, our son, and, the pressure was off me a little bit. I knew that I had a child, and I just think my body potentially just knew that that was what it was meant to do, when I carried Grace, because Leo was, in the world. So I will always, as he gets older and has those questions, I will always say to him, your sister wouldn't be here if you weren't. So that is my story for him, really, because I've...
Yeah. And there's just so much to your story where it's like, even if you're not a person that believes in destiny, that's sort of like, I might question that belief. Something I'm really aware of with both of you is that there is an enormous amount of, like, me and Georgie used to talk about this, the cycles of hope and hopelessness that you go through. And actually the two of you and your partners have been on years and years and years of that in out cycle of like, my gosh, is this embryo transfer going to work? Is this, I know you've both had your own fertility journeys and then surrogacy and then future. What's it like to transition out of thinking about timescales and clinics, and like, how's that been for both of you?
Gosh, yeah, because
There was a communal sigh that just happened that felt quite weighty.
I guess your time is the time that you invest in that hope, that resilience, time that you need to give to grieve, to process, is replaced with time spent on nature nurture, So it's a shift of energy. I don't know how you feel, Sophie, but for me, it's, obviously there's so much that you give to that journey, and then for it to have the outcome that you so hoped it for eventually is like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Now I need to shift gears and focus on this little being.
Right.
And so it changes, it evolves, and everything that you've learned about yourself throughout that process, you can then educate and, be a support for the people around you, people in your life and your baby.
Yeah.
And I think you grow, we've obviously grown a lot and learned a lot ourselves through going through such a journey. And, obviously I am supporting intended parents every day going through it, which does take me right back sometimes. When I'm with the children, you don't think about it all the time because, like Georgia says, your energy is shifted to being a mum. But when I'm talking to intended parents and I hear what they're going through and where they are, it does take you back to the days when you were, in the midst of it. But I think I'm an empathist. I can, hearing the journeys and hearing the stories that they're going through, I think that that's what makes, us the people that we are today.
Yeah.
I do believe that, and I used to tell myself, I'm not, you're given in life, things that you can handle, like the strongest people are given sort of those journeys to go through. So I do think, like I say, we've grown and we've got stronger through what we've learned through and what we've been through to be able to help and educate others going through it.
Amazing. I also think there's this thing that I'll speak to both from a surrogate and an IP point of view, which is this moment happens. You've been in all these cycles of like hope, hopelessness, or potentially if you're like a same-sex male couple building a family, you've got to a point of like, oh my gosh, we never thought this was going to happen for us, and here we are. And then there's this almost expectation. What I found in surrogacy is there's an expectation from society that everybody will just be delighted and happy and in awe of you and, oh my gosh, aren't you amazing? And then actually you're a mum with a brand new baby and everyone knows how much you've waited for this moment. What is it like to then go, oh my God, motherhood is actually just really, really hard? And whilst everyone wants me to be happy and gleeful because I got my goal, like, you're teething and you're a bit of a pain in the butt.
Absolutely. And I speak quite openly on social media platforms about this. You know, however way you get to parenthood, however way you get to being a mum or a dad, you still experience exactly the same things as what other people do who haven't had those challenges. And so I gave myself permission quite early on because there was something a little in the back of my mind going, gosh, have I got a right to actually...
To complain about how hard it is to be a parent.
Oh, actually, yes. Yeah. And the more that I can do that and show that I go through the same, same pains that we do as mums, we can moan about things, we can let off steam, we can have that ability to express ourselves in the way that we should.
Yeah.
No matter how.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important. I think for surrogates as well, one of the things that I'm very involved in is talking to surrogates who afterwards suddenly go like, oh, some of that attention has gone. Not that any surrogate that I know has ever done it for the attention. It'd be really, really, really poor choice for getting attention. But I think that thing of like, oh, it's gone, and then having empathy to your IPs of like, they are cracking on with early parenthood, and that's hard. And actually the surrogates, what I'm trying to encourage is surrogates to connect back in with other surrogates rather than their IP. Sophie, talk to us a bit about it.
I could talk a lot about this because I didn't give myself the permission early on to allow myself to feel what I was feeling in the early days of having, one baby, let alone two under two. I think because for so many years I didn't believe I'd ever become a mum. I never thought post-birth ever. I never, thought beyond, it can't be, when we become parents, that's it. It'll all be easy because the journey has been so tough. And then when we did become parents, we found it much harder than we ever imagined.
Sure.
And I almost cut off. I was very open about our journey, our fertility journey, our surrogacy journey on social media and with people. And then I almost got to the point in motherhood where I found it really much more difficult than I thought, and I stopped talking about it because I felt this guilt that there were so many people watching me that were desperate to become parents.
Yeah.
And I felt I couldn't say, actually, it's really hard. Like, I'm finding it really hard, and I'm so beyond grateful that I have become a mum, and I would never wish this away, but it's really hard. And I just felt like I couldn't say that, during the times where I really did find it tough, because of the guilt. And I'm not like that now. I do think it's really important to open up and be like, do you know what? Just because I had a really long journey and I wish for these children so much doesn't mean it's going to be.
Feeling it's really is such an important thing. I'm pleased we have both sides of the coin there for our listeners. It is such an important thing because it's very similar to baby and pregnancy and fertility loss as well. There's this sense of I support a lot of families after loss, and I think there is this sense of now we have our child, we just have to predict the world that we're eternally grateful, that everything's wonderful. And actually, parenthood, however your child has come to, is really, really tricky. It's really hard. And so I'm really grateful we've explored both of that. And to our listeners, just like permission to do all the messy stuff that comes with parenthood.
Feel it's complicated. So we'll be walking there. No one tells you what to do. You're waiting to my friend. What do you want me?
And also, everyone's been watching Skeeter. That's the hard thing, I think, in surrogacy, is everyone's kind of been watching your story because you've had to involve an agency or other people and your surrogate and their family. So there's been this kind of attention on it. The other people getting pregnant, that attention won't be there. Talk to me about your relationship with your surrogates. Now, I'm one of your surrogates and we're really good friends, but talk to us about your relationship with your surrogate in Mexico and with your friend.
Yeah. So as you mentioned earlier, Kate, it shifts, doesn't it? And I sort of thinking about from a surrogate's perspective, I can imagine you have all this sort of attention and all this, sort of investment in you, and then it's like, oh right, okay. So I was super conscious of that. And it was really helpful with us being in Mexico for that length of time to be able to connect again with Aurora and to be able to spend some time with her and Sunny. And that was a real gift. And not only did we get to spend time with her, we got to spend time with her mum and her daughter and her sister. And that was really special.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the benefits of being in Mexico, having to, having the ability to actually see Aurora on a regular basis. And so what is it like when we've been home now? Again, I'm conscious of it. Months go by, weeks go by. And so Duncan and I sort of take the responsibility to check in with Aurora, and she does the same. It's funny because one of the questions I think I had, I think to Mike and Wes some time ago was, how often do you speak to your surrogate? You know, sort of, is there a guide? Like, what do you do? It is led by the heart. That's what I feel. And so we send regular updates of Sunny. Aurora loves seeing pictures of him and vice versa. And yeah, so that's where our relationship is right now. And I believe it will continue to stay that way. You know, Aurora will always be part of our lives. Yeah. We will always be part of her life as well.
And I suppose, our journey was obviously a little bit different because it was one that proved she didn't want a relationship with them going forward. My best friend, she was our surrogate. So, and I do remember having the conversations before we went ahead with surrogacy with her, just, saying, what happens if, something goes wrong and that affects our relationship or, etc. And Em is very much led from the heart, and she believes in fate, and she is, she reassured me a lot during that period of time before we went ahead. And 5.5 years on, our relationship's the same as what it was before she even offered to be our surrogate. I call her our special auntie, like Leo and Grace's special auntie. I'm sort of, auntie to her children, and we make sure that the kids know, we always we don't talk about it probably, because mine is still quite young. We don't speak about it every time we see one another because we see each other every week. But her children are a bit older. They were, they were probably, 4 and 6 when Leo was born. So they do remember the whole journey. And yeah, we have a lovely relationship. And, we have a photo of Em up on the wall for Leo to look at. And it's just, hopefully that will continue into as the kids get older and they're all very close. And yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? I think, I'd encourage listeners to really work this out with your IPs if you're a surrogate, and with your surrogate if your IPs beforehand. Is, from my point of view, I don't want any special relationship with little Bean, who's currently in my belly. I want a relationship with her because I've become really close to the IP. Yeah. In the same way that, like, I'm really enjoying, growing a relationship with Sunny because, these are children that you've got a different level of investment into than, just your mates' kids or what have you. It is a different level of investment. But I think this piece around life beyond surrogacy, talk about it before and during your intentions agreement, because I know there are surrogates who have struggled with the lack of update after a child has been born, or who have felt like, actually, maybe I wasn't clear on the relationship. Yeah. And I think for surrogates listening, that has to be a real, a personal kind of exploration before you start the journey. Is, what am I looking for from that? Am I somebody who after birth is able to go, okay, cool, great, back to life, my main focus, as I keep telling people at the moment, is a mojito. But, back to life, back to kind of the journey that I was on before. I'm also looking forward to reconnecting with my kids who are much older, in a way of, being able to kind of move and jump around and do things that I haven't been able to do throughout pregnancy. So, like, coming back to kind of who you are. But that relationship will be completely and utterly unique right through to, we have surrogates who have no contact with their IPs beyond that, and it was always quite transactional. So thank you both for sharing your insight into that. Key takeaway from today, life beyond surrogacy. What's your key thing you want listeners to know?
Oh my gosh. It's an evolution of the journey you've been on before. So it's still filled with lots of challenges, but it's also filled with lots of love and lots of laughter. And I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah.
And I would just say, reach out for support. whether that's an agency, whether that's friends and families. Educate yourself as much as you can. I know it's difficult, to understand what the process is like without that education. And I would also say just hold on to that hope. Like, don't, even if you've got 1% hope still left in you after whatever journey you've been on, just keep holding on to it and, see that light at the end of whatever tunnel you've been through.
That's what keeps you moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
And coming from you two, that is enormous. Like, I know how many cycles you guys have been through. So I guess my main takeaway from this is that after surrogacy, also for people who are supporting people through surrogacy, see them as parents. I think, our whole identity as intended parents, which is a term, I've always struggled with, but like people then become parents, and actually life beyond surrogacy is parenthood, and that's where the support needs to be for IPs. And for surrogates, I would really, really encourage connecting with the other surrogates and take a bit of time for yourself, genuinely come back to nurturing yourself. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you both. Thank you so much for sharing so generously.
Thank you, Kay.
If this episode touched you and you'd like to find out more about my surrogacy journey and our completely unique surrogate membership, please head over to our website, www.mysurrogacyjourney.com, or follow us online on Instagram at official My Surrogacy Journey. If you love this episode, then please subscribe to the series because we're going to have episodes coming out weekly. We can't wait for you to tune in and follow us. Thanks for listening.